Hello, Thriving Therapists. Welcome back to our Thriving Thursday Facebook Live sessions that will happen every week at 4 p.m. Eastern. Today's topic is all about self-care and boundary management. And I love talking about this, not only because it impacts us, but it's because we can use it with our client work as well. So I wanted to dive right into why self-care is such an important topic, and the 5 pillars of self-care that I feel are very important to cover, not only for yourself, but again, with your clients. So what we're sharing today can be used for you, and it can also be used in your client work. So I noticed several years ago that when my clients were coming to me, they were usually in crisis, or they were super overwhelmed. They were in the middle of a major life transition, or they were, really super stressed. And what I felt was if we addressed the fundamental, easiest things to address first, like self care kind of issues, then I noticed that instantly they would find that their coping would increase, that their bandwidth would get a little bigger, that things that used to bother them a lot would not be quite as intense, and we could start to then unpack the deeper issues and work on them. But if people were coming to me and they were exhausted, they weren't sleeping well, if they were eating really crappy stuff, if they were not moving their bodies, if they weren't taking good care of themselves, then it just made everything harder. I mean, raise your hand if you know what it feels like to be in that position. I do. I mean, if you've had a child, you know how bad sleep deprivation feels. I know personally, when I had my kids, I felt like, honestly, when I had sleep deprivation really bad in the beginning there, I thought I could just start crying in the middle of Kroger, our grocery store. So I feel like it is not uncommon that we need to address self-care as a fundamental principle when clients first come to us. And it's super important that we practice it ourselves as well. You know what it's like when you get to the end of a busy week and you're at the end of your rope and you feel like your eyes are going to cross and you can't concentrate anymore and you can't tolerate much. Your patience is getting shorter and your reactivity is getting hotter. You know what that feels like. And usually it's a red flag, right? It's an indicator that we need to start taking better care of ourselves. So whenever I feel that, I just take it as a warning light. It's like an engine light, right, that goes off inside my vehicle. And it's telling me that I need to reassess what I need the most. And so one of the biggest permission giving questions that I give to my clients, and I'm giving it now to you guys, is to pause and ask yourself, what do I need? Because that's so important. If we are constantly running and pushing and trying to, keep going when we're really feeling run down, it's not going to serve us well. And when we're not serving ourselves well, we're not serving anyone well, right? So I see a few of you tuning in here. Give me a little hello or a hi. Tell me where you're tuning in from, so I'm sure I know that this is recording live. And I'm going to dive right into the 5 pillars of self-care. Okay, so number one, in my opinion, is sleep. When our sleep is off, everything else is off. Okay, so we really do want to make it a priority to make sure that we're getting not only enough rest, but we're getting good quality rest. I went to a conference years ago with a physician from Florida, and he was talking about helping athletes before big events. And he said, my favorite kind of work to do is to help them feel ready for like the Olympics and these huge Wimbledon matches and all of this. So this conference was fantastic, and he was talking about self-care and the importance of sleep. And he said at this conference, if you want to get better quality rest, you have to go to bed earlier. You're never going to get it by sleeping in. Hi, Vanessa, tuning in from Washington. All right. So you want to go to bed earlier. You don't want to sleep in later. You're never going to kind of make up for that missed quality rest by just sleeping in a little later. You really want to back that bedtime up and go to bed earlier. So there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to like sleep and sleep hygiene. God, I spend a lot of time, almost a full day at retreats that I host when I talk about self-care. But today we're going to blow through this really quickly, so I'm just going to scratch the surface. But sleep hygiene is a really important topic that I hope you're talking about with your clients, and I hope it's something that you address in your own life too. We have to get off of our phones. Our phones are destroying us, especially right now with everything going on in the world. When we're scrolling through social media a couple minutes before we're falling asleep, forget it. I made that mistake earlier this week, and I was wide awake until like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, which is really late for me. So I want to really encourage you guys to remember, park your phone away from your head at least 30 minutes, if not an hour before you go to bed, and really help yourself with that sleep hygiene window, and try to go to bed a little bit earlier if you want to increase the quality of your rest. Second pillar in the self-care 5-pillar topics today is hydration. So I know this seems kind of simple, but so many people are not drinking enough water, or they're drinking too much of other things, a lot of additives or sugar or alcoholic beverages or whatever it might be that are adding things to our system. We want to really be sure that we're hydrating with enough water. And we want to be sure that we're starting our day with a glass of water as soon as we wake up. This has been shown in scientific studies to be something that's very important for our health, and I always encourage my clients to do that. So many people start with coffee or tea right away in the morning, and that's going to dehydrate your system. So you want to start with your glass of water. I'm still trying to teach my husband that trick because he he always like goes right for his breakfast first, and I'm like, get your water. So that is really something that we really want to remember. So proper hydration on top of good healthy sleep, and now we're 2 pillars into the 5 pillars of self-care. The third one is all about nutrition and clean eating. So clean eating really means just eating as close to the source of the food that's being produced as possible. So we're reducing the production layers of it. So instead of having applesauce, for example, you want to just have the apple. So you're wanting to get as close to the whole food source as possible. And I'm not going to get into a ton of stuff here about food and what we should be eating and all of that, but I will say it's an important topic to me personally. My mom was a nutritionist growing up, so that was super important to me, and then I ended up marrying a chef. So food is a big topic in my life and my household, and I find it to be a very comforting, nurturing, loving, supportive thing to do when I take the time to do it in a way that makes me feel healthy. So really thinking about eating as close to the source as possible, clean eating, whole foods, and then thinking about food in terms of fuel and energy. We're not thinking about it in terms of diet. We're thinking about it in terms of, does this food that I'm having help me feel awake and alive? Does it help me feel energized and fueled? Those things I think are important topics. So we want to move away, I think, from food topics and conversations with our clients, that are more sensitive to what foods are good or bad, for example. But we really want to think about, how do I feel? I'm always trying to encourage clients to tune into what they notice. And a way to do that is to slow ourselves down and really move into mindful eating. Mindful eating practices are way different than how we usually eat, myself included. I run very fast. I run a very fast schedule. I run a lot of different components in my life, and sometimes you will see me putting a hard-boiled egg in my mouth right over the kitchen sink. So I totally know what it's like to eat really quick bites between sessions and trying to whip up something fast and eat it in our cars or whatever it might be, eating on the go. But mindful eating really invites us to come into a space of slowing down, of being in front of something beautiful, of feeling a sense of gratitude and presence and connection, to tie into our last Facebook Live, where we were talking a little bit about the importance of presence and connection. So mindful eating is like a practice of mindfulness, but we're doing it 3 times a day or whenever we're having a meal or food. So these are all great things, by the way, that we can not only practice ourselves, but teach our clients. The 4th pillar in the self-care pillar department is movement. Okay, so I'm not going to call it exercise because so many people have kind of a shame trigger around that word, but we're going to talk about movement. So I was having a conversation with a client this week, and she said to me, I have this inner dialogue that sounds like I should take a walk. and I'm being lazy if I don't get out there, and why am I not taking the walk, and why am I not doing it? And it was preventing her from feeling like she wanted to do it. And she also noticed when her spouse invited her to take a walk that she would rebel, like have a rebellious response to it. And so it was fascinating. So we broke it down a little bit and talked a little bit more about what the dialogue sounded like. And then I asked her to tell me when it does work for her. Like, when does she feel motivated to move? And she was like, when I initiate it and when I think it's going to be something enjoyable or something fun to do. And so I was like, can we just work with reframing that and get away from kind of that inner critic, critical parent, rebellious teenager kind of like, you should get up, you should take a walk. And then this rebellious inner child saying, I don't want to, you know. She was having this own kind of battle and fight within herself. And it was preventing her from just enjoying the I get to move. I get to go out. I get to enjoy the beautiful weather in Michigan. I get to enjoy the sunshine today. So that was a fascinating discovery when we really changed it from I should be doing this to I get to do this. So I wonder if that's also maybe something that you guys have noticed that can be helpful in your own life. When you reframe the way that you're thinking about something, it changes, we know this, right, as therapists, it changes the way we feel, and that changes the way we behave. So there's the classic cognitive behavioral therapy track, right? So thought, feeling, and behavior, action. And it changes the result. So if we reframe the thought and we move it into a new column and we invite ourselves to move because we get to, then it doesn't feel like this harsh kind of you should be exercising, you have to do it, your doctor told you so. You know, it doesn't turn it into this shame trigger spiral or inner critic voice that gets too loud. The last pillar, in my opinion, for the self-care pillars that I think are the most important, top 5, would be outlets for stress, like recreation, leisure, hobbies. It's all that play, creativity, fun, and joy. So this is really fascinating. Most people who consider themselves very successful business people don't make a lot of time to play. And when my husband and I lived in Munich, Germany, for almost 2 years, back when we were first married, we were suddenly struck by the culture, right? Because they run their life a little differently than we do here in kind of the busy, crazy United States. There was a real emphasis on play, even with adults. And so the parks there were designed for adults to enjoy them. They weren't just like a little playscape area for children to play. And I saw people that were older, like older adults, enjoying their playtime. You know, they were playing games, they were playing ball, they were playing frisbee, they were riding bikes, they were kayaking on this little river through the English Garden, and like they were really enjoying their time there. So I started to like lean into this idea of like, I get to do that. I get to find joy and play again. Like it's not just for children. So it was kind of a foreign concept for me at the time because I was so like head down, keep working hard. And it just was a really fascinating shift. So I try to invite people into this space of what brings joy. Like, where does the joy live for you? Even in the midst of everything that's going on right now, can we find pockets of that? Is there a way to return to that for you and maybe for your clients? So the other aspect of what we're going to talk about today is about boundary management, because I think these two things kind of go together, right? When we're in alignment with our healthy self-care, then it's easy to be in alignment with our boundary management. But when we are not, then I think they start to crumble on either end. They're very interconnected, these two pieces. And boundary management is so critical not only for our own wellness and health, but it's also really critical in the way we show up in our practice. So we want to be sure that we are not over accommodating. When we overextend ourselves, and we offer ourselves or our services when we're really not available, what happens? We end up resenting the people we're trying to love, right? So we have to be sure that we're not saying yes to things when we are truly not either emotionally available or mentally available, physically available, or our calendar is not available. So I want to really encourage you guys to think carefully about this because it's very easy in the beginning. And I know when I started my practice, I was very, um, I had the tendency to want to say yes to every single client that wanted to book at every single slot. And they would say, can I see you next week at 7 o'clock at night or something? And I was thinking to myself, that's not the ideal time for me. I don't really want to come in the evening, or I was already there at 4. I wish they could come at 5 or whatever it was at that time. And I would say yes, and then they would like forget or no show, and then I'd be really resentful of the client that I literally got a babysitter for, or I had to arrange fast dinner or whatever I had to do to like drive back to my office, open the office up, turn the lights on, the drill, like get your files out, all that stuff, and get everything set up for this client, and then they wouldn't come or something would happen, and I was overextending myself. I was over accommodating, and then I would end up resenting the client, right? That's not fair. So what I really learned from that is it's perfectly okay to say that doesn't work for me. And that's okay for you to say in your life too, not just with client work, but also in boundary management with your family or with your loved ones, with your friends, like with people who have other expectations of you. So I think that's something that a lot of therapists struggle with because we get in this field because we have big hearts and we want to help, but then we extend ourselves too far and then that becomes problematic. So holding firm to your schedule is like something I really want to encourage you guys to remember. That's how we stay in alignment with our integrity. And when we're out of alignment with our integrity, then everything starts to crumble. Because when we're not in a place of really like upholding that integrity for ourselves, then we can't do it for anyone else either. So I just want to encourage you guys to remember that the boundary management piece of this work is huge, and it crosses a lot of different areas. So for example, clients sometimes will text me for an appointment change, and then they'll follow it up with like clinical info or something, and I think, no, we're not doing this. Like this is session material, so I do not even respond to that. I say that they can reach me via text or via email for quick appointment changes or schedule changes, but I am not exchanging anything beyond that. So I'm just leaving that for the next session where we get together. The temptation is to write back or to connect more or to, again, overextend or over accommodate because you feel bad or this person's really struggling and they're sharing something really, you don't want to like leave it. But when you do that, you're bending on your boundary, and then it's giving them a mixed signal of your availability too, and it's changing the dynamic of your professional relationship. So I can't emphasize this enough, especially to therapists that are just building their thriving practice, that boundary management really matters. So let me know if you guys have any questions or thoughts, how your own self-care and boundary management are going for you. And then lastly, I just want to say we have so many people in our course and I'm super excited. So the online course is open now. It's called Build Your Thriving Practice. It's 5 modules and you can build your practice in 5 weeks or less. And I will walk you through it. There are video modules, there's worksheets, there's downloadable forms. And in addition to that, you get to get into our private Facebook group that's just for students only. So it's like a little mini Thriving Therapist community with lots and lots of engagement and accountability. And I'm always in there answering your questions. So you have me as like your 5-week coach in there kind of helping you through all the steps and answering questions along the way. And so far we have, I would say, a super engaged, motivated community of students for the fall cohort. You can still get in on the course until Sunday night, September 27th at midnight. The cart will close for the end of the year, actually the end of the decade. And then we're going to have another round of this course open up in the new year. So I hope you want to join us because I'd love to have you, and there's still time to get in on it. You can find the link to it all over the page. It's in the cover photo and everywhere. It's pinned to the top of the page as well. All right, you guys, if you have any other questions, let me know. It's always my privilege and pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for being such a great community, and I will talk to you again soon. I'll be back next Thursday, if not sooner, with our standing appointment for our Thriving Therapist Facebook Lives. Talk to you soon. Have a great day.